Discussions with the Self, April 10, 2014. The origin of thought, what precedes thought, and what is beyond thought. Can we look into what is going on inside of you? He is sitting in the chair in his jeans and bare feet. He is enjoying the breeze and watching the lizards play and listening to the birds sing. He is confused about how he feels. It is a combination of melancholy and deflated ego from failure and ambition. He feels that the content of the videos are gobbledygook. He feels that they are not deep, rich, or real, but very convoluted, empty, and mostly superficial. Can we examine this? And by that I mean, look at this thing going on inside you, without judging it, but yet still look very closely at it. Would you make the recordings for just yourself? The posing of this question is answered automatically by an energetic movement inside you, isn't it? The movement of resistance is apparent and automatic too. Resisting the movement at the birth of the thought to prevent you from seeing the fact of the answer to the question from which you wish to escape. Is that right? The movement of an automatic resistance appears to be a form of conditioning and a defense mechanism to preserve the construct of the me. The answer you see did not show up in an intellectual way, but rather can only be described as an energetic accumulation and movement within you. Although this concept, this fact, is beyond actual verbal expressions, as it is alive and therefore always in motion. But the answer here is a surprise to you, as it is the first time you've seen it. The answer, the fact being that, would you have made the videos for yourself? The entire thing was an escape from the neediness, the want to belong, the emptiness, the loneliness, which are descriptions of the different types of pain and emotional hurt we observe within ourselves because of the void that is at the core of human consciousness. Now before we continue, let us not condemn the fact of what is, or say that this or that should not have been or should have been different. This is important to ensure that another form of escape isn't sought out by escaping from the escape. Do you see this? Do you see that you are not full of ambition, but that you are ambition, that ambition is you? Don't judge it. Don't reject it. Just carefully observe it as it is and as you are, and determine if the fact is that you are ambition. This is something important for you to know as you are learning a fact about yourself. You are ambition. Do you see this? What is very energy intensive, it is a very energy intensive exercise that goes on internally, is the unconscious pattern of continually masking who you are, including the fact that you are ambition, in hopes of escaping the reality of that fact. Do you see this? This is done with many other things, including loneliness and emptiness. You are conditioned to escape these undesirable states of being and then an elaborate facade travels with you everywhere. This masking escape allows you to easily fit in, which is also part of the trap of respectability, which further conditions the mind with unconscious patterns of behavior, thought, and action. No wonder you are continually confused. Do you see this? The energy needed for wakeful conscious watching of the whole structure of the human being is completely sapped and drained by these energy-intensive, unconscious mechanisms going on within inside of you. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to actually see what is going on factually within the human body and mind and outside the body. Human beings are highly evolved and therefore deeply complex. Reactions happen in a split second to certain stimuli, and other times elaborate defense mechanisms are erected even before the conscious mind, the brain, has had an opportunity to make sense of what occurred. Are you able to follow this? Don't be hypnotized or mesmerized, but let us actually see what is happening together. A perfect example of conditioning here is the pre-thinking of an event such as the return of your behaviorally challenged son from his grandparents. What is this thing going on inside of him? Why do certain movements within the body come to life in such an energetic way upon the stimulation, especially when the reactive mind is occupied energetically and actually in the past or some possible future instead of in the place where facts can be observed? This is a fact. It is an observation. It is important to note when you are not in the present consciously, for whatever reason it is. Understand me, this is not judgment. This again is not about judging a thing you have done or didn't do, or escaping a thing you did or didn't do, but clearly, very clearly, and actually seeing what the thing is as it is. Is it possible to see the structure of the thing that stimulates the mind to think? Call it what you like, the seed, the stimulus, the idea, the energetic movement that is not tied to thought and beyond comprehension, but can only be observed as it occurs within. Is it possible to see this thing just described without reacting to it, without allowing the seed to be embedded into the soil of the human mind? Once a seed is embedded into the soil of the human mind, it completely disappears. And when the reactions of the human mind produce thoughts, it is often hard to trace them back to the invisible seed which is now gone, just as an oak seed is gone in place of a large oak tree. The small, energetic thing with so much potential that allowed the tree to exist is nowhere to be found. So exactly it is with our minds. Do you see this? Are you able to make the correlation without being mesmerized by the words or the story? This is an urgently important subject, and seeing it clearly is necessary. What we are discussing here is what exists before thought. Do you want to understand why you think certain ways? then you must see the entire structure, the construct, the universe in which thought originates. That is what we are talking about together. Can we go further? Can we look at this a little more closely with increasing skepticism to be certain we arrive at the facts and not elaborate conditioning and escape? Can you allow the seed, the thing that, if allowed to follow its natural process, will produce thinking in you, to come upon you as it is, that being an energetic movement internally, and just observe it. Observe the seed before it is absorbed by the reactive mind, the soil, and then produce thoughts. Can you look at this thing that we are calling a seed, but it is really an indescribable thing as it precedes thought, and not get caught in the mental action to package it or memorize it or compare it to a memory or a thought or an emotion, thus making it a part of your past and an automatic part of your conditioning. The mind is very quick, so it takes an intense care for watching to see the structure of what is occurring. This is not an effort or work or conflict. This is simply using the body's energy to observe itself and its world as it is. What is needed for this observation? One must see. Now you have to come upon this yourself. We're asking questions and having a conversation together. One must see that he has been conditioned to react with thought patterns that are particular, specific, and automatic. Often the first and only reaction of the body is the burying of the seed in a nervous system or emotional reaction, thus allowing thoughts to be created. Do you see this? Once the seed is planted and becomes a part of the body by the body's central nervous system, the energy of the body is used to produce the living side effects of the seed being planted in human mental soil, namely our thoughts. So actually, in the creation of thought from no thought requires two things at a minimum. A stimulus of some kind, which we have referred to as a seed, and a human reaction, usually unconscious. These two things are part of the structure of thought. Do you agree with this story to describe what is going on inside you? Do you see it as a fact? Can we look at it another way? Thoughts are the manifestations of the entanglement of an indescribable thing moving upon a human being and a human being's reaction to that movement. Now, something we want to consider here is that will thought come into existence if the human being does not react to the seed, the initial movement, the initial energetic movement. Now, this is not philosophy. I realize this may be deeper than most people look into themselves, but this is not philosophy. This is not religion. This is not storytelling. This is not hypnosis or suggestion. This is none of that. This is looking seriously into who you are. This is a serious look at what actually happens in the mind, in the brain, To look at this requires clearness of mind. You must have a clear and quiet mind to see what is going on here. Do you see that? Now, why is it important to know the entire structure of thought? You must answer this question yourself. Most people think that their thoughts are who they are. This is why so much conflict exists in the world, because human beings are involved in internal, ongoing conflicts that they hide as best they can and escape from as often as they can. These conflicts spill out into the world in which you live because you are not able to see the fact of the origin of your thoughts. Do you want to see the fact? Do you want to see the origin of your thoughts? Being able to see doesn't make one better than another. It doesn't make this person, this speaker, into a guru or a leader or any other nonsense. This person, this speaker, this writer, this podcaster, this contemplative is nobody. The entire discussion is about finding out who is this person, who he is not trying, who he is not trying to find a way to trick people into wanting to obtain my snake oil. The tendency and that tendency and conditioning within you is there. You watch and see if it is there and care for it gently. Care for it gently as you would a brand new planted tree in your garden. Can we talk a little more about what it is at the core of the human being that we are constantly trying to escape with all manner of devices, religions, philosophies, trips, vacations, music, movies, entertainment, etc. What remains of the human being once all unconscious processes, conditioning, and reactions? We're talking about what goes on in the mind. What remains of the human being once all unconscious processes, conditioning, reactions, and as such are observed without evaluation. Obviously, once you are conscious of a particular problem or fact, it is no longer shrouded in unconsciousness. It can be an unconscious pattern again. Do you see that? It can be unconscious again. But currently, if you observe it, if you observe an unconscious action or movement within yourself, it is no longer unconscious. This is a fact. Recognize that we are not discussing abstractions about how you will handle things tomorrow or how you should have handled things today, but what is actually occurring even right now within you. This is important. You have to see this thing for yourself. What is the human being when there is no ego, no unconsciousness, linked behaviors, thoughts and actions? What are you exactly? What is the source of your consciousness? This again is terribly important because a fundamental understanding of reality is important to clearly observe without evaluating. To do this only requires that you see what is, that you actually are. Why is this so hard to discuss, you may ask? Even now, as you type and we focus together on how to communicate to one another There are emotional and intellectual routes of escape being fathomed by a mind that doesn't want to look at what it is. The fear is real. It is within you. Fear is the primordial emotion. Let us see if there is multiple fears or if there is only one fear. You must ask these questions yourself. Is it the fear of falling into the void and being annihilated? Is that the only real fear? You have to ask yourself that. This fear of annihilation, which if you follow all fears within this, is where it leads to. Do you see that? Is it a fact? Do you want to look at this dark space, this emptiness, this chasm that is the human being? The entire problem with humanity can be summed up in the following statement, but see for yourself if it is a fact. There is a gigantic void within the human being out of which we spend our entire lives trying to escape, but it remains with us because it is us. You cannot run from what you are. Look at that again very closely. It seems so simple. Can it be? You cannot run from what you are. In the moment that you see that fact, that you are the emptiness, the loneliness, the void, and then you shall be free from the fear of the void as you recognize that you are that fear and the void, and thus conflict no longer exists because you have seen what actually is. The void is timeless and eternal and beautiful in its natural state of complete and total aloneness.